welcome in, Mountaineer Nation. Welcome to the Voice of College Football, West Virginia style, right here. I'm Joey Foster. I've not been with you guys for a few weeks, and I know I've got a lot of phone calls wondering where I've been. So I'll pass some information on to you and let you know my wife had a heart attack, and been taking care of her, keeping her pretty close and watching her and making sure everything's okay. She's recovered well, doing really great. Proud of that. Hey, I'm back on here with you guys. Don't know how much I'll be doing on YouTube from this point forward. Still yet to be seen, but hey, I'll be here every once in a while doing shows, and also I will be here to as well to host shows and be guest on shows. But hey, we got a great show for you tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about a game everybody looks forward to every year. The Oklahoma Sooners. West Virginia is traveling to Norman, Oklahoma this weekend as 13-point or 13.5-point underdogs in some bet sites. I don't see that, but that's okay. We got a guest in the back room who will come in with us, and we're going to discuss all this. Ladies and gentlemen, he's the author of Band of Brothers. He's a West Virginia guy, but he's a professor and everything at Michigan State. Mr. Frank Beer. Frank, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, Joey. Always good seeing you, and really good news about Yvette. I'm glad she's feeling much better. That was scary.
Yeah, I had a pretty rough weekend, as you can remember, because Bill Wolfley passed away that Sunday, and we talked a lot on Monday and Tuesday and stuff, and then Tuesday evening, my wife had a heart attack. So yeah, it was kind of a sudden thing, Wolfley passing away with a heart attack, and then my wife having a heart attack. That scares you twice as much right there already, especially since Wolfley was so much younger than my wife and I were, So it's kind of a weird thing. But anyway, let's get on to this Oklahoma football team. Let's talk a little bit about the West Virginia football team. And when we talk about West Virginia, Garrett Green, C.J. Donaldson, Jaheim White, they're doing a really good job for us this year. And that offensive line is putting people on their butts. I mean, did you see that pancake block that Zach Frazier got last week in the end zone? I mean, our offensive line is getting pushed, and our running game's eating it up. And the thing about going to Oklahoma, if Oklahoma has a weakness anywhere, it's stopping the run. They're giving up a little over 160 yards a game. That may not sound like a lot, but that's their weakness, And so if they're giving up 160 with our running game, I feel like we can probably get about 250 on them. I'm hoping so anyway. But what are you seeing out of this run game this year, and what do you think about it going to Oklahoma?
Well, I think the team is really rounding into shape. As we go back in time to this summer and what the pundits were saying and others were saying about the prospects, it was doom and gloom. We know that, it looks like it's a MAC team picked to finish last in the Big 12. We all know the litany of things. And, a number of us, and you were one of them, I was certainly one of them too, felt that really was not an accurate portrait of this team. A lot of talent. And the question is, would they play well together with the unknown of Garrett Green? Even though he had experience, now we're talking about him having the team to himself. And the question is whether or not now with experience under his belt, he could be a big-time quarterback. And I think most people would say he's exceeded expectations. We knew going in the offensive line would be really good. I think there were 3 players on that line that made offensive line that made preseason Big 12. And arguably, Zach Frazier, the center, is the best at his position. Incredible.
Mm-hmm.
But, the thing that really excites me about this is that, it's the last time we're going to be playing Oklahoma in the regular season for a while because they're going to be exiting for the SEC. So I go way back to 1982 when West Virginia went into Oklahoma. Nobody exactly. And a quarterback named Jeff Hostetler transferred from Penn State. In fact, I was best man at a wedding, one of my students' weddings, and had to sneak in to watch the game every once in a while to see how it was proceeding. I was yelling, and people thought I was celebrating the marriage, which I was. But what a great day that was! And then, of course, the great Fiesta Bowl. Um, this is an Oklahoma team, I think, Joey, that some people, I think, would conclude it's better than what they thought it would be. Uh, and there are others that would say, it's not performing up to expectations. After winning 7 games in a row to start the season, being in first place in the Big 12, then they hit a wall with 2 straight losses. You may have seen the Kansas game. I saw a good share of it. Kansas handled them and outscored them. And then, of course, last week, they lost probably the last Bedlam game to Oklahoma State, probably for a while, maybe ever. Both coaches are saying it's not good business for those 2 teams to play each other because they're going to have their hands full in their respective conferences. So I think West Virginia is in a very good place right now. That it's not only they beat BYU, but the way they beat BYU is, I think, really critical. And so, but we'll talk more about the specifics. But 13 and a half points. I think it's down to 11 and a half now with some books. I think is a bit rich, given the fact that these 2 teams have played 3-point games in consecutive years, split them.
Mm-hmm.
West Virginia won last year in Morgantown, and Oklahoma won in Norman the year before.
Well, Vegas has always been really nice to Oklahoma. We know that they're going to give them benefit of the doubt. And then something I noticed they're doing the same thing with UCF. Have you noticed that? Oklahoma State's going to UCF this weekend. They're only a 2-point favorite against UCF, a team that West Virginia, beat like a drum. Now, a couple of weeks ago when we played Oklahoma State in Morgantown, it was a really good game until 3 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and then Oklahoma just scored a couple of quick touchdowns. The score looked a lot worse than what it was. And Oklahoma State beat Oklahoma. So I just can't figure out this anywhere from 11 to 13-point line, 13.5-point line, some sports books. I can't figure that spot out at all, especially if you look at the history of West Virginia and Oklahoma. You'd be hard-pressed to find a time when Oklahoma beat West Virginia by 13. You'd be hard-pressed to find it. Most of the time, it's a 58, 56, 49, 47. It's within a touchdown every single game, it seems like. I can remember a couple of games it wasn't that Oklahoma beat us by, a couple of scores. But still, for the most part, it just doesn't happen. And so I'm really lost on that spot. It's okay, though. I took West Virginia at the points. Usually, I would take, like when we played Oklahoma State, I took West Virginia straight up. And I did. And I was excited until 3 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, right? It looked pretty good. But this game here scares me. Mm-hmm. Just simply because it's in Norman. Oklahoma coming off 2 losses like they are. They're going to be hungry. Brent Venables in his press conference looked like a man on a mission. If you got to watch his press conference, he was really, he was focused on West Virginia. He did not want to talk about anything but West Virginia.
Yeah.
And so if he's that focused, the team's going to be that focused. We better be that focused as a team when we go into Norman this weekend, or we could have our butts handed to us. So I look at that and I think to myself, Oklahoma is going to be a little tougher game than people think or than I'm thinking, really, because for the simple reason they've lost 2 in a row and they're so hungry. And they're still in there for the conference championship. They got the tiebreaker against Texas. Texas loses another game. Hey, Oklahoma's in. All it takes is Texas to lose. So Oklahoma is going to be playing their best for the next 3 games to make sure they can not lose anymore. You agree with that?
Yeah, there's no question about that. Here's the thing as I see it, Joe. Everything you've said, I certainly agree with. I watched the coach talk, and he only wanted to talk about West Virginia. They have in Dylan Gabriel a phenomenal quarterback. He reminds me of Donovan Smith at Houston. So our secondary is going to have to play very well, and they have been. They played very well, albeit it was for the most part a second string quarterback last week with BYU. But the bottom line is that if you looked at the preseason analysis of Oklahoma, the analysts weren't quite sure the offense was going to be as good as it has turned out to be on the passing side, because Oklahoma is a passing team. They pass to set up the run. The issue though is they expect the defense to be better. And I looked at the stats today, Joey, and if you look at the season stats for Oklahoma on the defensive side, in terms of points given up, it's been a tale of two cities. They on average are giving up 19 points a game, but they have given up over 31 points in those two losses. And their best player, a linebacker who's a Butkus finalist, Danny, I want to get his name right here, Danny Stutzman, didn't play last week, and he's questionable for Saturday, for tomorrow. And that's a big question mark. And you're right. West Virginia is a running team, three runners, a quarterback, a big back, a swift back, if you look at those three. And so the question I'm raising, and I know we're gonna pick what we think is going to be the final score before the end of the program. West Virginia does not want to get into a shootout with OU, and if we do get into a shootout with OU, it's going to be OU throwing through the air. We don't want that. So it puts a lot of pressure on that defensive front and also on the secondary. What people don't realize, I think a lot of people don't realize, is that the quarterback Gabriel is a good runner too. He's had a run as long as 40 yards this year, and I think he's third or fourth leading rusher, and that's something for a passer because he's good. And by the way, for those who are of my vintage, the answer is no. He's not related to the great Roman Gabriel, who played for North Carolina State and then went on to have a fabulous career with the Los Angeles Rams. No, they're not related. And so I think this game is really going to be a test for the OU defense, and it's going to be a test for the West Virginia defense. And the winner of that struggle, I think, that unit, the unit that does better, is going to win this game. I don't think there's any question about it. And I feel confident because the last two games have not gone well for OU. And the last two games, against BYU, the Mountaineers basically were running all over the field.
Right. Yeah. And I know that, wait a minute. I've got my soundboard is really messing up. Anyway, the thing about it is too, if the West Virginia offensive line has to take control of this game, like they have about every game they've been in this year, they've really done well. But that defensive line for Oklahoma can't stop the run like a lot of other teams can. So West Virginia should be able to get a hold of this defensive line, push them back a little bit, get some yards on the ground. Another thing too, Oklahoma's won a lot of games this year, and they're averaging time of possession is like less than 25 minutes a game. It's like 24 minutes or something a game. Yeah. Their time of possession. West Virginia's time of possession is like 30-some minutes a game, 35 minutes a game. So we gotta maintain that. We gotta keep control of the ball and just drive the field and eat the clock up because Oklahoma can score fast. Think about it. This is a team that's won every game but two this year, the last two, and they've won it by keeping the ball less time than anybody else. They don't need to have the ball for 30, 35 minutes to put up 40 points. They just need 20 minutes of the ball, and they can put up 40 points. So you better be ready, and you've got to stop. You've got to stop that passing attack, and you have to stop Gabriel when he goes scrambling back there. Same thing for them. They've got to stop Garrett Green if he goes scrambling, and they've got Stoops. They're a good catcher. I mean, that guy catches about everything thrown to him, exactly like Preston Fox, West Virginia, who catches everything thrown to him, right? So I don't know. Maybe Beanie Bishop will line up on him. He's their best receiver, I think. So I think I would line Beanie up on him or have Beanie
I think
on
so. It's I don't think there's any question about it that, I looked at the stats again. Dylan is hitting 67% of his passes in conference games. I mean, and I think I've got it here. His somewhere, his quarterback rating is off the charts. They're hitting a high percentage. They're scoring quickly. And so what I think, though, and I hope, I guess, is more aspirational than fact, because the game hasn't been played yet. If you look at their schedule, they played some really weak teams. Now, Arkansas State is better this year than some people thought. They're 5-4, but they played Tulsa as well, and also Cincinnati. So, yeah, as well as UCF. Those were 4 of the 7 teams that they beat to go 7-0. So UCF is not as strong as we thought, certainly not as strong as I thought. They're really having issues. Cincinnati, I knew that there would be issues there, particularly with Satterfield coming in and Braum going to Louisville. How would they do? Excuse me, not Satterfield coming in. Braum went from Purdue. I was thinking about saw him last night against Virginia, but their coach Fickle went to Wisconsin. But we've got at least a 3-headed monster of rushers, and if you mix it up and you sprinkle in the run past option with those receivers that we have with Cole at tight end, you mentioned Fox, and all the other Carter. You keep out, you name it one after another. We thought wide receiver was going to be a problem, and now we've got really a riches out there at wide receiver, and they're getting more confident. And I also hope we can get boy, why am I blanking on his name? Hudson Clement back. He didn't play last week. So that's, I think, is going to be important for us to get him. He's a great possession receiver. So you're right. Time of possession, at least from my perspective, is really critical in this game. West Virginia has to keep that offense off the field, and the Oklahoma defense has to yield yardage to West Virginia for that time of possession to keep on ticking.
Right. I would love to see a game where we come out and just drive straight down the field, using 5 minutes of the clock, 6 minutes of the clock, and going 75 yards for a touchdown.
Yeah.
That's the kind of game West Virginia needs. That's the kind of start we need. Even if we don't get the ball first, we need to try to hold them to 3 and out. If we can hold them to a field goal, great. But when we get that ball back, we need to drive. That first drive needs to set the tone for the game. And it really does. A 3 and out there, or maybe getting 1 or 2 first downs and then getting a 3 and out would hurt the team, I believe. You're out in Norman, Oklahoma. The last thing you want to do is get that crowd excited, get that crowd fired up. So if you can keep that crowd in check, keep the attendance in check, and not let them have a reason to get loud, that'll make a big difference. Now, look at turnovers. Both teams are pretty good with turnovers this year. Neither team really turns it over that much, and they're pretty good at getting them and taking them away. So I can see this game being a perfect play game from both teams on when it comes to turnovers. Neither team turning the ball over. I would love to see a nice turnover, interception or fumble or something by West Virginia. But I think that if both teams play a good game and don't turn the ball over, we're going to come down to the fourth quarter and not know who's going to win this game, and it'll be an exciting game for sure. So I want to recognize some people in the chat. Thank you guys for being here with us tonight. And got some people in here I haven't seen in a while. We got Timothy Green. Of course, Timothy's always around. Appreciate you being here, Tim.
Timothy's great.
Yeah, he is. Jackson Johnson. Jackson's always in here. Not even a West Virginia fan, but buddy, he supports us.
He's terrific.
John Gilly. Now, John has a radio station, and John, you're welcome to put that radio station's call letters into your thing there. I know it's a website you can go to that you host a show over there. Tell people about it. That's fine. And Silas, huge West Virginia fan, always in here with us. Appreciate Silas very much. Anybody else that's in here and not typing, we appreciate you being here. And I know there are some that are in here and not typing, but we do appreciate you being here listening to our show. If you do have a question, type it in and we will answer it. Silas says W will win an OU. And John says players know they're underdogs and still not getting that respect. That's true. It's West Virginia. We have to earn the respect. And you look at Oklahoma, they've lost the last two games, not looked very good, not set the world on fire this season by any means. West Virginia playing very good football. Oklahoma got beat by Oklahoma State last week. West Virginia got beat by Oklahoma State. That's two common opponents. And both games were really close. I think West Virginia played Oklahoma State maybe a little bit better than Oklahoma. So this thing of Oklahoma being a 13-point favorite or wherever they are now absolutely makes no sense to me. So, but yeah, I say you, John. Yeah, and our players play better as underdogs when they've got a chip on their shoulder. And Neil Brown's playing off that this year. You agree, Frank? I mean, we've been playing with a chip on our shoulder.
Yeah.
And if you go around the university up there, and I don't know how many people know this, but you can't walk in the door that you don't hear 14.
That's
and
right.
You'll hear 14 1,000 times as you walk through that through Mountaineer. Locker room or whatever. You'll hear 14 1,000 times.
Yeah. Well, he said this week we have to remind ourselves every game we have to show we're not that team, and that team is the number 14 team. But I want to make a comment, see what you and the folks online are thinking. If you're right, Joey, and there's every reason to bet that that it's going to come down to the end. One big advantage we have is our field goal kicker. If you look at the stats, which I did, and you look at what Michael Hayes is doing versus what their kicker is doing, Zach Schmidt, it's SCHMIT, spelled a little bit differently from the way it's ordinarily presented by a lot of people with that surname. He's not as accurate as is Hayes. And the big issue is from distance. I've got the stats here. Hayes this year is 12 for 13 on the year, 5 of 6 from 40 plus yards. Zach Schmidt is 10 of 15 for the year and only 25% from 40 plus yards. And so Oklahoma does not rely on his leg. They have a good punter. Transfer from Central Michigan, every bit as good as Oliver Straw, but in the special teams area, as it relates to kicking, we really got a good one. Brown got a good one. I think he transferred from Georgia State. And Michael Hayes, he's been money. And also what that says is, okay, if you don't score a touchdown when you're in the red zone or near to the red zone, get Hayes out there and take the points and go on with the game. But there are a lot of stats that say Oklahoma is a superior squad, but there are a lot of reasons why you would look at West Virginia and say They've got a lot of horses, a lot of studs, a lot of good players who've already proven they can come through in the clutch. And boy, I love those running backs. My
Yeah.
God, Mr. Inside, Mr. Outside, and who knows what Green's going to do. I mean, he can go both up the middle and around the end. But you got to establish the pass too, to make sure that they don't load up on the run. That's what's really critical, and that's where Devin Carter and Cole Taylor are really. I was going to call him Cole Porter, not quite. Cole
How
Taylor.
did you feel? How did you feel about the sell route
Yeah,
last
Cole
week coming
Taylor.
to life? How
Yeah.
did you feel about the sell route coming to life last week? How did you like that play when we were throwing that sell route out there?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there wasn't anything about that game I didn't like. I think there was a commercial once that talked about there's nothing about it you don't like. That game was just, I mean, it was a steamroller. BYU is really having some challenges. There's no question about that. But what I've said publicly going into the season is, these new additions to the Big 12 feasted on generally group of 5 competition. And it really was a step up to come into the Big 12. I mean, one of the things that I pointed out on Wolf's show a couple of months ago is that when you looked at the record of Central Florida, which arguably was considered to be the best of that breed of 4 incoming teams, they only won 25% of their games in the past against Big 12 competition. Yeah, they beat big time competition like Florida in a bowl game. I know that, and they have a great record, but it is a step up to go from the group of 5 to the Power 5. Actually, it's going to be the Power 4 soon when the Pac-12 goes out of business, but it's a step up. And West Virginia, I think, is getting to the point where they're improving each week. That Houston game, we have to not think about that. But if you do think about it, that Oklahoma State game may have been a whole different ball game. And here we are at 6-3. Could have been 7-1. Any rate.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. We should have beat Houston. There's no doubt about that. We should have beat Houston. To let them get a Hail Mary with just 12 seconds to go, my heart sank. I mean, I think every Mountaineer's heart sank when that happened. Because number one, we did not want to lose to Dana Holgorsen. Number two, we didn't want to lose to an expansion team coming in out of a group of 5 for first year in Power 5. And number three, we didn't want to lose on the road. And this year, this team was so determined, we just didn't want to lose, period. So losing that game in heartbreaking style had to deflate this program just a little bit. Maybe not much, because they played with heart against Oklahoma State. But you're right. Had we won that Houston game, the Oklahoma State game may have come out a little bit different. And we're sitting in a whole different thing right here, sitting here at what? It would be 8-1 then. But I can see us easily being 7-2, and then, because we should have beat Houston, which would have made it 7-2. Same thing as Oklahoma. And if we both come in at 7-2, I think Oklahoma might be a 7 or 8 point favorite instead of the larger, nearly 2 touchdown spread.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to drop the link in the chat. We got some people that sometimes will come in and talk or ask questions. So there's a link for anybody who'd like to join us. We'd love to have you come on, ask questions, talk to me and Frank. So
absolutely.
Anyway, Frank, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I'm just going to say another thing that I think just came out over the wire is that one of I think their leading rusher, well, actually, I think he's their second leading rusher, Marcus Major, but he's had some big games this year for OU, is questionable and may not play. They have 3 receivers that they've spread around the ball to. There's not really a primary receiver for OU, which is one of the reasons that they've been successful. They've got 3 guys rushing the ball, almost equal yardage. They got 3 guys catching the ball, almost equal yardage. Even last week, the three prime receivers had about equal amount of yardage. But one of those rushers, Marcus Major, is questionable. He's not out. But the guy to watch is a fellow by the name of Tawi Walker, who has 450 yards this year. And then we've got to watch Drake Stoops, who's a good receiver. He has over 500 yards receiving on 52 catches. And if Stutzman can't play, I'll tell you, that is huge for them, better for us. So watch that name, Danny Stutzman, a linebacker who's a Butkus candidate, as I mentioned. He is a difference maker. He is a difference maker. And he was out.
One thing about that though is, as you know as well as I do, Oklahoma's running back room is pretty solid, about like West Virginia. So it's like if we had to announce Jaheim White won't be able to play this week. Well, Justin Johnson is just daggone good, really, and he's we wouldn't miss much. We wouldn't miss a step. Oklahoma, I think, will miss a little bit more of a step than West Virginia would, losing a running back. But at the same time, they are loaded. They are loaded in the backfield back there. They've got some really talented guys. Once again, that's StreamYard links down there in the chat if anybody would like to join us. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some strategy. As football, let's just say we're head coaches for a minute. What's your game plan going into this game if you're Neil Brown? What is your game plan coming into this game?
Well, offense, you got to mix it up. You know that running is your forte as much as passing is the forte for Oklahoma. But you got to establish that you can pass so that the defenders are not just focusing on the run. That's really critical. And I think, when you think about the game that White had last week, what you got to do is rotate those runners so they get a dose of the big guy, Donaldson, and they get a dose of the speedster, White, on the outside. And Graham's got to, Garrett's got to mix it up too. Cole Porter is critical. And so time of possession is critical. And you've got to just drill it into them. No shooting yourselves in the foot, which means penalties. You have to really watch that. Even last week, that was an issue. Watch the fumbles, protect the ball. That's difficult for Garrett Green. He's like a Josh Allen. He sometimes throws the ball into spots he shouldn't. So that's really critical too. And on defense, I think one of the keys is they got to get to Dylan Gabriel. That's really important. So that they've got to have a combination of four-man blitzes. They can't always go zone or always go man. A lot of pressure on those secondary players, and so but it's ball control. It's got to be ball control with a mix of run and pass, relying on they're good. So WVU is going to rely on the run. But you got to be able to pass the ball to be able to do that. And I think, you can't get off to a slow start in Norman. We saw that last year at Texas Tech when they just accelerated and got off to a really fast. And then you're playing from behind, and then your game plan isn't as useful.
Right.
So that's what I would do. What are your thoughts?
That's what I said. That's what I was saying. If Oklahoma does get the ball first and goes down and kicks a field goal, or heaven forbid scores a touchdown, West Virginia has to answer that, because if they don't, and we turn the ball back over to Oklahoma and they go down and kick another field goal or score a touchdown, now all of a sudden we're behind a couple of scores. And as a running team, a team that's just living and dying by the run, pretty much, West Virginia is right now. We can't afford to get behind, not by a couple of touchdowns. Now, if we get behind a couple of touchdowns, I don't think it changes the game plan. We still run our offense, and if we can score, make it 14-7 or whatever at that point, we'll be okay. Mm-hmm. But I'm agreed. We cannot get behind. Our fast start is really needed. For me, the game plan, if I was Neil Brown, my game plan would be coming in, and you're right, managing that clock. Time of possession. We need to have another 34-minute game where we have the ball for 34 minutes and leave them the ball for 25, 26 minutes. We need that. Number two, I think their defense, especially their defensive line, over pursues a lot. They get excited, they run back there, they over pursue. So I think some delayed draws and reverses would absolutely burn them. And and if you can keep them to where, if they get to where they're over pursuing, and you burn them a couple of times with a reverse and a delay or something, all of a sudden their defense is going to stop that over pursuing, and then your regular game plan can go right into effect, and you can run the ball down the throat.
I agree. And I'll tell you, as you were talking, there's one thing I did, but I didn't do as well. Is weather going to be a factor there? What I found was it shouldn't be. I think the temperature is going to be in the high 50s. But one of the things I did not look at was the wind. My wife and I lived in Iowa for a number of years, and the wind in the Midwest can be obviously a big issue. What we can't have is what happened in Houston. In other words, we kick that on kickoff, kick that ball into the end zone. Do not give those speedsters an opportunity for a run back. That's really important. Everything should be a touchback on kickoffs and punts, punt out of bounds. Just do not give, don't give. Well, that's what killed us against. One of the things that hurt us big time against Houston was the special team play, our breakdown in their special team play. Do not give OU an opportunity to win this game because of superior special team play. So I think the kicking game is going to be really critical, not just in terms of field goals and punts, in terms of distance and inside the 20 with punts, but to make sure the kickoffs go into the end zone, number one, and number two, you don't give their punt returners an opportunity to get a big return, good field position, or heaven forbid a touchdown. That's a no-no.
About every Friday night during football season, Coos and I will talk on the phone, about the game coming up. And I remember our conversation during that Houston weekend. When we were talking about going to Houston, we talked the night before that game. And one thing we both said is we got to watch their special teams. Their special teams are special. They're really good. They have got some guys that are going to be running balls back in the NFL. And they are really, really good. And what we do is we went and kicked the ball to them, and they burn us. I mean, they burn us a few times. And you just can't do that. I would much rather kick a ball out of bounds and take a penalty on the 35-yard line than to kick that ball off to give one of them returners that are amazing chance to bring that ball back to the 45, 50-yard line or further. So, I'd much rather just take the ball on the 35. If that had been me, I know we took a penalty, had to back the ball up 15 yards. I'm kicking that ball as deep as I can. He kind of squibbed it down the middle of the field, and he just picked it up and took off running. Yeah. And there was nothing you could do. I took that ball and get some hang time and get my players down the field so they could make a tackle. Just do the best you can in that situation. So that squib kick, I did not agree with. I never did like a squib kick to kick off.
Now, there's one thing that I noticed too that OU has that I don't think it's has much of a presence with other major teams, and they have what they call the cheetah position on defense, which is really interesting. It's a combination of a combo position of a linebacker and a quarterback in one. And there's a fellow by the name, and this is a name we should look for tomorrow night. His name is Dasan McCullough, who plays the cheetah this year. And I went to the stats on Pro Football Focus. On the entire Oklahoma squad, this Dasan McCullough has the second highest rating as a position player for Oklahoma of all the players. And you know who's number one? It's Dylan Gabriel. So the quarterback is number one, and this Dasan McCullough is number two. And so it sounds to me it's almost like a free safety type player, but it isn't. He's given free reign to be able to go where he needs to go, playing, sort of half wolf, half man, half linebacker, half quarterback, and obviously with ratings like that, he's very, very successful. So what we don't want to hear is his name called many times on Saturday night.
Yeah, we need to block him down the field and just keep him out of play so that he can't do that. All right. Well, we were down to right around 15 minutes to go here. So let's let me ask you this. West Virginia beats Oklahoma if
You said it. I'm going to be a Paul Parrott here. Time of possession. I just don't see us if this goes to form and we got 34, 35, 36 minutes. I just don't see any way we lose this game. I really do think West Virginia is going to win this game. We win the game with time of possession. That's to me is the really critical piece.
I agree. I think about every game this year, other than the Penn State game, I came away feeling like West Virginia was the better team. Even the games we lost, Oklahoma State and Houston, we were the better team against Houston for sure. And the Oklahoma State game, that was a pretty even game.
You take Ollie Gordon out of that game,
Yeah.
and you're hard pressed to say Oklahoma State's going to win that game.
Right. But on West Virginia's side, that's the thing about this team. There are no big stars that are just standing out. There's not a Pat White or Major Harris or Geno Smith or Tavon Austin. But these players play so well together as a team that they have become really good. And they built their depth to where if somebody goes out of the game, I don't worry so much. Garrett Green goes out of the game. Usually, if you lose your starting quarterback, you got to start worrying, I don't worry so much. Nico's a pretty good quarterback,
Nico's great.
And so I don't worry about that. Hey, Usually if you lose your starting running back, you're in trouble. Hey, if CJ Donaldson goes down with an ankle again, I'm not so worried because Jaheim White is going to take up the slack. So, this team has somebody behind all the skill players. You named it a while ago, all the receivers that are touching the ball and getting out there. Sure, Preston Fox and Clement have quite a few more catches than everybody else, but Carter does too. But it's so spread evenly across the receivers that if we have a receiver go down, we don't want none of this to happen. But if we did, I wouldn't worry so much. We're okay.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. I like the composition of this team. If you think about it, and one of the things I like best is that, this old saw, there just aren't any really good high school football players in West Virginia. And then you look at Martin and what he's done this year, and you look at what Fox has done, and you look at what Clement has done, and these guys are West Virginia kids, and you look at someone like a Devin Carter, the transfers that have come in, Carter and Hayes, et cetera, et cetera. I think, what you said earlier makes so much sense to me because, one of the schools I went to was Iowa State. And every time we played Oklahoma, you never would hear the Iowa State. About Iowa State, it was always Oklahoma, Oklahoma, Oklahoma. Well, what I heard over and over again leading up to the football season is that Neil Brown can't recruit. This team it doesn't have a quality. It's not a quality squad. But then if you look at the rivals ratings and you look at what these kids have done on the field, he's got his staff. He and his staff have a good eye for talent. They know they're competing against the Ohio States of the world and the Penn States of the world, but they've gotten their fair share of players. They're playing with confidence now. Not that they weren't before, but now they know they can win. And I've said this before, but who hasn't? When that team takes the field, they're taking the field for the state of West Virginia. And you can't say that for a lot of schools, even major schools. But when that team takes the field, it's for the state. And you got to have pride in that. And that's why I've always had a lot of trouble with people who were naysayers and critical of the Mountaineers, because I was always one to say, look, let's look at not just the positives, but look at the facts of, and he's doing well recruiting for next year. He's in the top half of the conference, and would be even higher, would be in the top of the top, because OU and Texas are in there now. They're going to be leaving. So, it's I'm excited about tomorrow's game. I know everyone else is, and I think WVU is going to win it.
You're exactly right about West Virginia players playing for the state. They go out there on that field, they put it all in. And excuse me, they don't do it necessarily for themselves and the recognition for them. They do it for the state. And you can't say that about other teams. Texas normally has a great team. A lot of talent down there. There's players down there are playing for themselves. I just heard just the other day, talking to somebody out of the Texas program, that Arch Manning and the family are not happy about Arch Manning just sitting there on the bench, and that they may be talking to Ohio State. So that's what I mean. These players are not playing for Texas and stuff. Our players seem to be playing for West Virginia. I'm not even so worried about the transfer portal this year. I mean, I couldn't say it in years past. This year, I'm not so worried about the transfer portal. I think we're going to lose some players. Obviously, there's some players on the depth chart that aren't going to get to play, and there's just better people ahead of them. So they're going to hit the transfer portal. Obviously, I don't blame them for that. But I do not see us losing Garrett Green or C.J. Donaldson or anybody like that to the transfer portal this year. Now, could it happen? Sure, anything can happen. Unfortunate things happen all the time. But this team seems very excited to play for the state of West Virginia. They seem to be doing a really good job of doing that. They are winning time of possession. They're dominating games. Just absolutely dominated BYU. I couldn't tell you the last time I've seen BYU get dominated like that. And I've seen BYU play a lot of really good teams. They were absolutely dominated.
A lot of open field on those plays. Mm-hmm. The other thing I would say too, and this takes me back to the book I wrote about the Band of Brothers back in the mid 60s, early 70s. Those players would say we also played for our teammates, not just the state, obviously, and for our teammates. And, in the era we are in now with NIL, et cetera, who comes first? Well, for many players, they come first. But the bottom line, if you go back to that TCU game and you remember we had two players that were carted off the field and taken to the hospital. And if you go back and watch that film, after those two players went down and were carted off, not just one time, but both times, Mountaineers came out with greater resolve after that and took that game over in the second half. Because, Joey, you watched that game. That was a tale of two halves. TCU pretty much had their way in the first half. But as the night went on, West Virginia played harder and harder. And then those two blocked field goal attempts at the end. That was, to me, that was a signature game in an environment where you just wouldn't have expected West Virginia to come out with a win. And I look at tomorrow's game as a way of saying, okay, Houston now is really in our rearview mirror. We went to Norman and won.
How many yards do you think? I'm just curious because we are a rushing team. How many yards do you think we need to score 31 points? Do you think this is a team that needs 400 or 500 yards to do that, or you think this is a team that can do that in 300?
Yeah, I would say 350, 375, 400. I'd like to see us do what we did now. Obviously, it's going to be much tougher to do it against OU on the road than BYU at home. But I think if I'm not, I don't think I'm very far off. I think Jaheen White is averaging something like 10 yards a carry. So that, I think, again, it's having a diverse offense where you don't see just Donaldson running off tackle. You have a variety of things going on. Variety is the spice of life, and Brown has got to call a game tomorrow. He knows this, obviously. Who am I? Who am I compared to Neil Brown? But the bottom line is to keep them on their toes so they don't get one of something over and over again. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised to see another play where there's a flip and Green is down the field catching a pass for a long gain or a touchdown because he's very versatile. But I don't think it has to be 500 yards. I really don't.
I seen a coach the other day. I don't remember if I was watching ESPN or Fox, or maybe I was just watching a YouTube channel, but there was a coach on there, and they were talking about offenses and running games and things like that. And he was talking about West Virginia, and he said they have one of the more complex running games, but they have the players. They have the players that can do these plays. It's not that they've got these plays in and hoping the players learn it and figure it out. They figured it out and they know what to do. And they're just, it's just a dominating run game from West Virginia.
It's fun to watch because they feed off each other. To flip the coin on your question earlier about yards and talk about OU and points. OU's averaging 40 points a game. I would get nervous if, in terms of a WVU win, if they had more than 24. That's a tall order for our defense. Yeah. I think we have to score in the mid 30s, low to mid 30s to have a chance. And I think Oklahoma we got to keep Oklahoma to 24 points. That's 3 touchdowns and a field goal. That's asking a lot, particularly with the quality of quarterback that Gabriel is. And we've had trouble when you think about Donovan Smith and all the trouble he gave us at Houston. When he got going, what was it, 15 in a row in the second half? He completed 15, I think it was 15 passes in a row or close to it. We just can't allow that to happen. If that starts happening, then we're on the run. Let's keep it to 24 points max.
I agree there. So I'm going to put a link in the chat here. Guys, and let me find my boy, I tell you what, I'm not with it today. This is a link to Frank's book, Band of Brothers Then and Now. It was a 66 to 70, right?
That's right. Yeah, I did the last 3 years of Jim Carlin. Actually, it was 66, 67, 4 years of Jim Carlin, and then 1 year of Bobby Bowden, his first year.
Yeah. So check that book out. Be sure and pick that up over on Amazon. There's a link for it. You can pick that up on Kindle for $9.99. And I think I know Amazon sends me things all the time for either a free book or a book for $4.99 or something. So if you've got one of them coupons, grab it and pick that book up and
support. It's $21.99 for the soft cover, and I'm very proud. I was telling the Band of Brothers the other day, several of them, that even though it's been out since April, it was still rated by Amazon as in the top 500 of football books, football biographies, and given the fact it's not about an Ohio State or Michigan or USC, I'm very proud of that, and that's because West Virginia fans are just so great.
Yeah, that's for sure. They are, aren't they? All right, well, let's get some final predictions in here. Let's see what you think. What's your final score prediction? West Virginia, Oklahoma.
I'm going to say 31-24 Mountaineers. That's why I was focusing on that 24. I think we've got to stay away from turnovers, stay away from penalties. At one point, we were one of the top teams in the country in terms of penalties going into the Houston game. Since then, we've made more penalties than I would care to admit, and no special team errors, no gaffes like that. Lines playing well. It's going to take literally everything coming together for the Mountaineers to get a win, because let's face it, if West Virginia loses tomorrow night, the season goes on. Cincinnati and Baylor are next. West Virginia is still going to exceed expectations and go to a good bowl. If Oklahoma loses tomorrow night and goes to 7-3, certainly the college football playoff is already out of the picture. The Big 12 championship is out of the picture, and Oklahoma is playing in a bowl game that they ordinarily would not want to play in. And I think Venables is vulnerable, not to coin a phrase. But
I think if West Virginia wins tomorrow, we could end up playing like a USC or somebody in an Alamo Bowl.
Well, they're already talking about the possibility of Notre Dame. Yeah, I mean, if West Virginia wins tomorrow night, if's always the big word. It gets overused, obviously, but this team, I looked at the ESPN Power, Football Power Index and so on, and I'm looking at it right now. They're saying that probably 7-4, 7-5 rather, 8-4. But if we win tomorrow night and go 7-3, this team could end up 9-3. Cincinnati's not having a good year. Baylor has been an abject disappointment in every single way. It's just been a terrible year if you're a Baylor fan.
All right, now my prediction, and don't get mad at me, West Virginia fans. I really want West Virginia to win this game. Here's my problem with this. When I was watching, like the head coach for Oklahoma State or the head coach for BYU last week, for instance, when I was watching that head coach, they were so busy talking about the week before the Oklahoma game and how good they played and everything. They were not focused on West Virginia. You watched interviews that whole week, any player interview, any coach interview, all that BYU talked about was the last week's game. They did not talk about West Virginia coming up. All right. Same thing with TCU. Same thing with Texas Tech. Those teams were not focused on West Virginia, and we've seen what happened. This week, there is no doubt Brent Venables is focused on West Virginia. Just watch his press conference on Monday morning. Watch him interviews on Sunday. Even on Sunday, he was telling everybody, I don't care about that. I care about West Virginia. We're here now to get rid of West Virginia. They're not looking past West Virginia. All right. So they're going to play. They're going to play really hard. I just have them squeaking out another victory. I have them winning 38-35. We cover. If that helps, we cover. But I think we lose 38-35. Gosh, I hope we win though. I hope we win 50-0, to be honest. But I'll take a 1-point victory. But this year, I just don't see it. I think Oklahoma's a lot better team than people think. I think West Virginia's a lot better team than people think too. But I think Oklahoma has us this year. Now, if we were playing next year, there's no doubt about it. This West Virginia team is going to be amazing the next year or two. They're going to be absolutely amazing because they're pretty good this year. It looks like we might be headed for an 8-4 record if we lose to Oklahoma. And like Frank said, 9-3 if we can beat them. So this is an amazing team. And this is a young team, guys. That's where I'm going with this. It's a young team going out to Norman, Oklahoma. I think we keep the game very close. I really do. But I can just see Oklahoma winning it on a walk-off field goal again and 38-35. So that's where I stand with it. And I'm sure that 99% of y'all disagree with me. And that's okay. That's okay. I disagree with me too because I can't believe I'm picking Oklahoma to win this game.
Yeah. It is a big game for both teams. National TV, Fox at night in Norman. Place is going to be rocking. I actually at one point thought this was going to be a playoff to get into the Big 12 championship game. But then we lost to Houston, and then I'm really shocked they lost 2 games in a row. But, the job that Leipold has done at Kansas, they knocked off OU. It's unbelievable. I mean, he's now probably the top candidate to come to East Lansing. I don't know if Michigan State
Yeah.
is going to be able to get them. But if you look at what KU has been in football over the last decade, and the you know the I mean they have tried every which way to win. He comes
Well,
in from Buffalo and turns that program around, and nobody wants to face them. And their starting quarterback Daniels has hardly played, and they're still winning. It's an amazing story.
I know it. I just don't see. Here's my thought on this. I don't see Michigan State getting him. I see Michigan getting him. Jim Harbaugh's suspended today,
Yeah, I just
so
saw that.
it's liable to turn into Jim Harbaugh being out of a job here real soon.
Yeah.
So Michigan's going to go in search of a coach, and you tell me where there's a hotter coach in America than Lance Leipold right now.
Oh,
There's not.
yeah, exactly. But I will say this: don't. None of the fans out there should assume that Harbaugh isn't going to be on the sidelines.
Yeah,
University of Michigan, the president has already basically said, Big Ten, if you do this, they've already lawyered up big time with a major firm in Washington D.C. Their board is behind them. Don't be surprised if they seek a restraining order and against the Big Ten. And I would be shocked not to see Jim Harbaugh on the sidelines for the Ohio State game. I just don't see that. I just think in today's society, where everything is a lawsuit, it seems, I just don't. But you're right; they levied it, and Michigan said, "Don't do it. We'll come after you." And that's their own conference. We'll come after you, and everybody's doing it. By the way, reminds me of being a teenager. Everybody's doing it. Dad, don't punish me. It's crazy.
yeah, it is. It is. Well, Frank, I sure do appreciate you coming on with me tonight. It's been a great show. Hey, how about Mountaineers tonight basketball? What do you think?
Well, I think every single win we can get, we should just say thank you, God. Monmouth, because I'm from New York State originally, I'm familiar with some of the mid-major leagues in the Mid-Atlantic and in the Northeast. They play in a lower mid-major. I always consider every year for the sports column, starting in January, I do an analysis of mid-majors because I try to predict who's going to spring the upset this year that you don't expect. And there's always at least one. Monmouth is not one of those. I think it's a matter of these guys playing well together. I didn't see what the spread was, but I would be shocked to see West Virginia lose that game.
Yeah, I would too. I would too. I agree with you. But at the same sense, I don't think we're going to have a great year in the Big 12 in basketball this year. And nothing against the players. The players are fantastic.
No,
We've got a great group of guys.
we lost so
And
many.
nothing against the coach. Nothing against Coach Josh either. Josh is a great guy, and he's going to coach his heart out. Problem is, there's just so many other things, and now we lost a player to a heart condition. We've lost a player thanks to the NCAA saying no, he can't play. So we have some challenges ahead of us in basketball, but that's okay because we'll be back next year in basketball. So I don't worry about that.
Yeah, and what I hope, and I think it'll happen. I've been outspoken about this. I wasn't. I shouldn't say I wasn't pleased because who am I? But I was disappointed is the right word when I would get on Rivals and then look up West Virginia high school recruiting and seeing a big blank page. Too much of anything is probably not good for your health, and we went too far all in for the portal, and so I would hope we would get back to recruiting high schools again and bringing in some good high school players. That said, but when you roll the dice with the nil in the portal, Battle was denied. Carissa took benefits he shouldn't have, so he's suspended. Perez was thrown off the team. He's at Arizona State now, and the player that hopefully will be able to play that had the health incident with heart issues. You go down the list, and a lot of players we expected to have on the squad are not there. And having Carissa out is really hurts because of he was new, and so for the chemistry of the team. But they played well in the second half the other night, and we'll see what happens. Tip off is right around the corner.
All right. Well, thank you once again, Frank, for being here. Everybody for being here tonight. We appreciate it. We had a great show. If you didn't get to watch it all, go back and watch from the beginning and watch the show. Be sure you hit the thumbs up and hit the little bell notification so that you'll know when we go live right here on West Virginia Football at the Voice of College Football. Frank, once again, thank you so much for being here. And I guess we will see everybody next week. Frank and I may be back. Hey, Frank, we might just start doing a show every week. It's been kind of fun.
Yeah, I just want to say, Joey, for everyone, I know I don't just speak for myself. Thank you for all the work you do with the channel and interacting with Mark at the with the network. You just do a lot of work that people, I know a number of people I talk to appreciate, because without your work on that, a lot of these shows simply would not be on the air. So thank you very much.
Well, thanks, Frank. I appreciate that. It's great. All right, John Kelly, Scott, Otto, Kenny. Well, let's see. Let me look up through here real quick. Kenny, Otto, Timothy Green, John Kelly, Silas. You know, all you guys that are out here in the chat with us, and there's more because a lot of you didn't even chat and comment tonight. We thank you for being here. Everyone have a great night. Let's go Mountaineers. Let's go stomp some butt out in Norman, Oklahoma tomorrow. Everyone have a great night. See you guys later.
Bye-bye.